I had been kind of toying with the idea of moving out here because prior to that I'd been successful kind of landing roles from Australia. And then we just decided to take the leap and then apply for our green card and that kind of thing, and then we got it, and here we are.
I'm glad you did when you did.
Yeah.
I'm Alexandria Ikamoni with BIN News Now. More National Guard troops are patrolling the streets of Washington, D.C. President Trump says it's about restoring order.
Crime is rampant in D.C. It's rampant in our generally blue-run cities, and they've got to do something about it.
The Trump administration has expanded anti-crime patrols in the nation's capital, turning the effort into a 24/7 operation. The suspect accused of killing Minnesota politician Melissa Hortman has been indicted on state charges. A grand jury indicted Vance Belter on first-degree murder charges. Belter is accused of shooting and killing Hortman and her husband at their home on June 14th. High housing costs are making some buyers more willing to risk safety for affordability. A recent Redfin survey found 22% of home buyers will be willing to trade safety for affordability, while 27% said they compromise by giving up a low-crime area. Get BIN News on demand on the iHeartRadio app.
For victims of drunk and drug driving, our grief is unique. But you are not alone. You always have a place at MAD. Call our 24-hour victim helpline at 877-MAD-HELP or visit mad.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
We're going to find out a lot about the Dodgers this weekend. The first place San Diego Padres are in town tonight to kick off a 3-game series against the Dodgers. The Dodgers, who have lost 4 in a row and 21 of their last 33, are a game behind the Padres in the NL West. This series could be a turning point for the Dodgers this season. Are they still a championship team, or are they a team with a bunch of high-profile players who simply are not getting the job done? We will find out this weekend. The NBA schedule is out. The Lakers will be at home for their regular season opener against Golden State on October 21st. This will be the 23rd NBA season for LeBron. The Lakers are on the Christmas Day schedule against Houston. The Clippers' first regular season game is October 22nd at Utah. The LA Sparks are back in action today on the road. They take on the Dallas Wings. 4:30 tip-off LA time. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we aim to foster enlightening, sustainable, restorative dialogue, and we welcome unapologetically progressive viewpoints that empower fellow citizens. We are now accepting submissions for KBLA Talk 1580 guest editorials like this one.
For the KBLA Talk 1580 guest editorial, I'm Martin Gordon, chair of the Pasadena Community Coalition. Recently, I listened to a Tavis Smiley Show conversation with James Falk. James said something that caught me off guard. Black Altadena is gone. My community is being murdered. I said murdered.
All you have to do is go to our website homepage at kbla1580.com and click on the icon that says KBLA Guest Editorials to learn more about our editorial standards and content submission guidelines. As long as the topic aligns with our mission, we are happy to review your submission and consider it for broadcast. We can't make any promises, but we want to amplify progressive perspectives that are community-focused and solution-oriented. So go to KBLA1580.com right now to download all the information you need about our guest editorials. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Our very special guest in this hour is none other than Brother Diallo Brooks. Diallo is our education contributor, and on this particular Friday afternoon, on Fat Meat Fridays on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, Diallo happens to be in Washington, D.C. Diallo Brooks, with over 25 years of experience in social justice and civil rights, has been a pivotal figure in promoting policies that foster safe, healthy, and thriving communities. He currently serves as the founder and CEO of Civic Vision Strategies, a strategic consulting firm empowering organizations through transformative leadership, development, and community engagement strategies. As the former senior equity fellow at the Schott Foundation for Public Education, Diallo bridged the gap between national policymakers and grassroots education justice organizations to advance progressive racial justice policies. His fellowship embedded him within the U.S. Department of Education, I should probably say the former U.S. Department of Education under the Biden administration, where he served as a senior executive championing community and equity-focused policies. Diallo, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you for having me.
It's always a pleasure. Diallo, why don't we start with the obvious? We have about 4 minutes before the break. What is it like living under occupation in Washington, D.C.?
It's actually surreal. It's surreal because, in particular, because I have children, 18-year-old and a 22-year-old that actually live with me, a 24-year-old as well. He doesn't live in D.C. But just having that conversation, particularly with my son, about how he navigates the city during this moment. We've always had the conversations that we typically have with our Black children around policing, but this is exaggerated because all of the kind of safeguards, particularly me being somebody who is connected to folks here in the city's local government, that recourse is not there anymore because the federal folks have taken over. And so it's a real surreal feeling, and it's, hearkening back to a darker time in our history as a country.
Diallo, share with our listeners what, from your perspective, the federal occupation means. And by that, I mean, this morning I woke up to the news that Pam Bondi has not only seized control of the district's police department, but there's some other critical functions that ICE and the DOJ are now moving towards assuming as well, including but not limited to, Donald Trump has said that he wants to go to Congress to extend the occupation beyond 30 days.
Right. So the federal occupation means that there's National Guard troops that are deployed by the president, not by local folks that are stationed in places around the city, but also all of the other federal agencies. So you have the DEA, the FBI, the ATF, you have ICE, all operating beyond what they traditionally operate in the city. And you're seeing that around the city. There's also checkpoints on different streets now. So as you drive down streets, there's police officers stopping you. And the other thing that's scary now is DC used to be separated from moving anybody that they bring into custody to notifying ICE agents. Now it is mandatory that they share that information with ICE and let ICE know. So you'll have ICE moving in as DC police officers are doing their job. And then there's a gray area about who's in charge of the DC District of Columbia Police Department. The mayor says it's still under mayor's control, but the feds say it's under their control, that every decision has to be run up the totem pole to them before decisions are made around policing in the city. So it's an occupation time here in the District of Columbia.
Diallo, having traveled across the country as you have for many years, and with just a few minutes that we have left, is this something we can expect in Chicago, Oakland, and the other cities like Baltimore that the President of the United States mentioned earlier in the week?
Yeah, I think they'll try to do some of that. The difference is DC is a federal city. There is some reporting mechanism that connects them to the federal government in ways that the police department and the state has to allow the federal government to play a role in some of those other local jurisdictions. But I don't put it past them to try in those places. And the pressing part is that crime is down, violent crime is down in all of the cities that you mentioned, that their mayors are doing amazing jobs of implementing programs on the ground that mitigate crime. So it's disheartening to see how they're moving in and using DC as an example. But sure, they'll try it in other places.
I think that one of the challenges, we had 2 city council persons from the District of Columbia that were on our program this week, and those 2 city council persons seem to suggest that they're doing everything they can to honor their home rule laws. Is there any expectation that that could be challenged by the President of the United States?
Sure, they're going to push the envelope on this, and Janice Lewis George and Council Member White, Robert White, are amazing council members, and I know that they're pushing as hard as they can. But at the same time, being a federal city, it makes it a lot tougher, and that's why DC has been fighting so hard for statehood for years, to get out of under the federal control.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. This is KBLA Talk 1580. When we come forward, more with Diallo Brooks.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey, it's Matt, your leaf filter trusted pro. Gutters are an often neglected part of the home. They're also one of the most important. Clogged, overflowing gutters can cause serious problems like foundation damage or basement flooding, which can cost thousands of dollars to fix. Let's face it, cleaning gutters yourself is not only a hassle, it can be dangerous. But when you get Leaf Filter, you'll never have to worry about cleaning clogged gutters again. Get started today by visiting leaffilter.com/deal to schedule your free inspection. If you decide to move forward, we'll professionally clean, realign, and seal your gutters before installing our patented stainless steel micro mesh system. Leaf Filter keeps out everything but the water. And it's backed by a lifetime transferable no clogs warranty. So you're protected for good. We're in your neighborhood and ready to help. Visit Leaf Filter today for a free inspection and estimate, and you could save up to 30%. Visit leaffilter.com/deal. That's leaffilter.com/deal.
We all hear the radio ads about the IRS. They tell you to be afraid, to be scared, and they try to frighten you into calling. I'm not here to do that. Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000, $50,000, or $500,000, we have a solution. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in your car, at work, or with your kids. No matter where you are, call now. 800-550-9651. Don't lose hope. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS. Generous programs are now available that can give you a fresh start. Our passion is taxes and helping individuals fix their IRS problems. We have over 1,000 5-star reviews on Google and an A+ with the Better Business Bureau. You don't need to be afraid of the IRS any longer. End your tax nightmare today by visiting us online at TRA.com or call 800-550-9651. That's 800-550-9651. Tax Relief Advocates, real solutions for real people.
An official message from Medicare.
I turned 65 this year. I knew it was time to figure out Medicare, and I had questions like when to enroll and how to enroll. So I went straight to the official source, Medicare.gov, to get the facts about Medicare. I found answers to all my questions, and I'm ready to get started. And so can you. Just go to Medicare.gov to get the real facts about Medicare.
Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Still getting around to that fix on your car? You got this. On eBay, you'll find millions of parts guaranteed to fit. Doesn't matter if it's a major engine repair or your first time swapping your windshield wipers. eBay has that part you need, ready to click perfectly into place for changes big and small. Loud or quiet. Find all the parts you need at prices you'll love. Guaranteed to fit every time. But you already know that. eBay. Things, people, love. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Diallo Brooks. Previously served as the Senior Vice President of Programs and Advocacy for the Schott Foundation, leading grant-making and programmatic initiatives for education, equity, and justice. At People for the American Way, he was the Senior Field Director of Field Mobilization, acting as a national spokesperson on civil rights, voting rights, and civic engagement. He led the Defend the Black Vote initiative, successfully engaging millions of Black voters in the 2020 elections, and was very active in the 2024 elections. Diallo, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you, Jesse.
Diallo, you raised the question just before the break about the home rule power of Washington, D.C., and we did deal with it on a couple of occasions over the course of the week, that D.C. should be the 51st state. Break that down for us.
Yeah, if you look at the population of D.C., it is large at roughly 700,000 people. It's a large city. It has the ability under home rule to manage its budget. We raise the resources, we allocate the resources, we have a competent council and mayor in our city, leadership in our city. And so we should be able to really function independently as a state. We're basically a colony right within the middle of the United States, right between Virginia and Maryland. And it's about time that, we pay federal taxes for us to have the ability to govern ourselves and make decisions about our city without the federal heavy-handed intervention whenever we have adversarial administrations. And so folks have been fighting for that for a long time in Washington, D.C., not only just to get separated, but also to be able to have representation in Congress, both in the House and in the Senate, to really impact the decisions that are made, not only about this city, but about this country, because we are citizens of the United States of America.
So I see three levels of government that the people of the District of Columbia, at least two they're missing, but certainly three with the city council, the mayor and the city council and the present form of government. You are missing a voting representative in the Congress of the United States and the House of Representatives. Based on your population, you should be entitled to 2 United States senators, which would be impossible to disrespect from the executive of the United States in the absence of another branch of government that you're missing under the 10th Amendment. You're missing a governor and a House of Representatives. You're missing a state Senate and the 2 or 4 or 5 state senators that could be elected, distributed across the population of 700,000 people in the District of Columbia. Now imagine that. The District of Columbia, which we now consider a city, is larger than, I think, 6 or 7 states in terms of population, and yet they have 2 United States senators and voting members of the House of Representatives. In those jurisdictions, they also have a governor, a state house, and a state senate, and all of the departments that come there too for the citizens in their state. They also have federal representatives in the Congress of the United States and in the Senate of the United States. They also have a local judiciary that can either run for office, a local Supreme Court in their state, a local appellate court in their state, trial courts within their state. And so at least 2 levels of government function, almost over government, if you will, in the District of Columbia. But the resources that would come, including tax breaks, including expanded housing credits from the various forms of the various elements of government that do not exist in the District of Columbia, that would be protected under the 10th Amendment, would have never allowed the President of the United States to put troops throughout the city in the first place. That's what we're also saying when we talk about statehood, right, Diallo?
That's exactly what we're talking about. And when you look at what's happening now with them putting troops on the streets of Washington, D.C., there's also another decision that would have been made locally, right? Because every state controls their National Guard, just like Governor Moore said, we will not deploy National Guard members unless we feel it's absolutely necessary for the safety of our citizens in our city or in our state. The same will be true for Washington, D.C. But our mayor doesn't have the ability to say no about National Guard troops flooding the streets of Washington, D.C. The other piece that is really ironic is that the citizens of Washington, D.C., the folks that live within Washington, D.C., did not ask for more law enforcement this to happen from the federal government. There was not a clamoring of, hey, we need some help. We're not able to deal with crime in our city, and we need some federal intervention around that. And so it's very ironic that they would make up statistics particularly when the president even showed the data that crime had decreased here in Washington, D.C., and used that as an example of the city is overrun. Now, any violent crime that's happening within a city, or any crime that's happening in a city, is too much for any city or any state, any jurisdiction around this country. At the same time, local leaders need to have the authority to deal with those circumstances. And I think DC has been working very hard to mitigate any crime situations that are happening in the city, and did not need federal intervention, not in this way.
Diallo, you do an extraordinary amount of work in the education space. It's been a moment since we've talked about the closing, if you will, of the United States Department of Education, or the ransacking of it and fundamentally altering its functions. What are you hearing, and what's going on in the education space in light of Donald Trump's anti-education department initiatives?
Well, it's going to be a very hard time for public education in this country, all over this country, because of the resources that the federal Department of Education moved based on Congress's allocation to states around the country. Those resources are not hitting the ground in the way they need to in a lot of places, with particularly many schools opening up around the country. And so that's going to cause teacher shortages. It's going to cause resource shortages. We're also going to see children go hungry because of the cutbacks in food service programs that are supporting low-income students around the country. And so it's going to be a disaster. And then you have somebody running the department that has no clue about education. It doesn't come from an education background, doesn't know what it means to be in a public education environment. And so they're not going to have the type of leadership necessary to provide the supports in filling gaps around the country. And so basically states are going to have to fill in the gaps. And with budgets tight, it's going to be a very difficult decisions across the board that states are going to have to make, and then local jurisdictions are going to have to make around public education.
Is there anything that educators can do in light of the shortages that they're going to be experiencing in the classroom? I mean, as close to the students as that gets?
Yeah, I mean, the educators have to push back. They have to make sure that they are articulating their needs, both on the local level and the state level and on the federal level, and making sure that that's plain. We've already asked educators to go above and beyond even before this crisis. And so I'm really hesitant of putting the burden on their backs when they've already been doing a lot of heavy lifting. They've already had to come out of their pocket to support their children in the classroom. And these educators care. I've been around the country. I've spoken to a lot of them. I've worked with a lot of them. I have family members that have been are educators or been educators. And so I know the sacrifice they make for our children. And it's really incumbent upon us to support them in supporting our children. And so we have to make better decisions at the ballot box to make sure that we are allocating the resources that we spend in our tax dollars on things that matter versus flooding cities with police in ways that are not needed. We should be doing what Baltimore is doing. Like the Baltimore's mayor is doing an amazing job. Chicago's mayor is doing an amazing job. There's other people around the country that are doing really good work. If we're really investing in the things that matter, if the federal government wanted to help, they would be putting the money into programs that actually support young people, that are around mentoring, around economic development for young people, and really, really creating an environment where folks feel safe because they have opportunity versus just policing, flooding the street. And we know that data does not support adding more police, actually makes our community safer.
Diallo, before we turn our attention to the Voting Rights Act and what's going on in Texas and the legislators that are escaping Texas justice right now, and California, where Governor Newsom is moving forward with the implementation of a plan to turn his entire state blue. I want to break down some of what I think I just heard you say, but this is probably an oversimplification of what I think I heard you say, but let me just take a shot at it. It means that fewer students are going to be bringing apples and leaving them on their teacher's desk. And it also means that fewer teachers are going to be buying pencils and crayons because the schools themselves don't have the supplies that students need, that many teachers reach into their own pockets and provide. And that's an extreme analogy, because the more practical need, in light of what Diallo said, is that there will be students who will be coming to school hungry, without meal programs, and that it is basically impossible to learn on an empty stomach. Is that what you just said, Diallo?
Yeah, that's what I said. And also the teachers will have less in their pocket as well, because they won't get the raises, they won't get the financial support to do the job that they're doing. So yes, that's a good overview.
Diallo, can we turn our attention to Texas?
Sure.
So we have these legislators, these Democrats who've escaped Texas justice with Texas marshals flying all over the country, trying to locate them in local hotels and haul them back to Texas, I guess, hogtied and branded to show up for work in the Texas legislature, because Donald Trump has essentially demanded of Texas a mid-decennial redistricting, a gerrymander. Surprisingly, however, for me, while I think most of us are encouraged by the reaction of Democratic governors, it seems to me that the Voting Rights Act itself is being lost. And that in Texas, we are talking about chopping up Jasmine Crockett's district, other African-American and Hispanic congressional districts to create more red districts in the state. I'm sure that the same spirit to make certain districts blue will impact California, it will impact Illinois, and they will impact other states in the union that are joining quickly to accomplish this racial gerrymander. Your thoughts, Diallo?
So my thoughts are, the courts matter, the federal courts matter. That means our senators matter, those that vote on the Supreme Court and other federal court nominees. They matter because they're the ones that would connect to the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act and all of these other pieces of the Constitution and our laws that would protect us from having this happen. And this is the Project 2025 playbook. This is what the extreme right has been pushing for a long time. And they're taking advantage of a Congress, of a Senate, and a White House, and a Supreme Court that are all lockstep with each other to wipe out the voice of the people. Because their philosophy is that the less people that participate in our democracy, the more likely they are to control power in this country. And so what you're seeing happen in Texas is this attack on voting rights. It's racist because we know the districts that are being attacked, right? It's partisan because they're doing it off cycle. And so as Democrats, folks have to figure out ways to push back, because the right is not playing fairly and they're not playing by the rules.
Is it your opinion that in this 1 minute or so that we have, I've just been informed that we're wrapping it up. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. This is the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. More with Diallo Brooks when we come forward.
The biggest names, the best conversations. You're riding with Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Black New York City Mayor Eric Adams says a 12th Harlem cooling tower tested positive for Legionella but will be fixed by Friday.
I want to reassure everyone the air is safe to breathe and there is no risk to our drinking water or our water supply.
92 people have been sickened in 3 weeks with 3 deaths. Health officials are urging those in 5 affected zip codes with flu-like symptoms to get treated quickly. Veteran rapper E40 is launching On One Infusion Wine, a flavored wine in mango, mixed berry, peach, pineapple, and strawberry. It will hit liquor stores nationwide in the coming months. And a federal judge has blocked the Trump administration from cutting funding to schools with DEI programs, ruling the move unconstitutional and a threat to educators' free speech. The decision also stops enforcement of an education department letter barring race-based decisions in education. Get BIN News now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
For victims of drunk and drug driving, our grief is unique. But you are not alone. You always have a place at MAD. Call our 24-hour victim helpline at 877-MAD-HELP or visit mad.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
We're going to find out a lot about the Dodgers this weekend. The first place San Diego Padres are in town tonight to kick off a 3-game series against the Dodgers. The Dodgers, who have lost 4 in a row, and 21 of their last 33 are a game behind the Padres in the NL West. This series could be a turning point for the Dodgers this season. Are they still a championship team, or are they a team with a bunch of high-profile players who simply are not getting the job done? We will find out this weekend. The NBA schedule is out. The Lakers will be at home for their regular season opener against Golden State on October 21st. This will be the 23rd NBA season for LeBron. The Lakers are on the Christmas Day schedule against Houston. The Clippers' first regular season game is October 22nd at Utah. The LA Spartans are back in action today on the road. They take on the Dallas Wings. 4:30 tip-off LA time. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Fatherhood includes being present during pregnancy, delivery, and beyond, supporting your partner and advocating for your baby's health. Black fathers play a key role in reducing maternal and infant health inequalities. Join the free AIM Fatherhood Program and make a difference. Visit blackinfantsandfamilies.org/fatherhood.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. If you need help getting your resume in order, finding job training, or landing a job, we've got 3 great options for you. First, the City of Los Angeles has WorkSource centers across the area offering free job support. The California Workforce Development Board can help you with everything from GED prep to vocational training at no cost to you. On the federal level, the Department of Labor's American Job Centers offer a full range of services for job seekers and businesses alike. Visit careeronestop.org, or for more info, just call California's Help Center or visit cwdb.ca.gov or call 916-657-1440. For the City of Los Angeles programs, go to ewd.lacity.gov or call 213-744-7300. All these services are free to help you get your next job. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
An official message from Medicare.
I turned 65 this year. I knew it was time to figure out Medicare, and I had questions. like when to enroll and how to enroll. So I went straight to the official source, Medicare.gov, to get the facts about Medicare. I found answers to all my questions, and I'm ready to get started. And so can you. Just go to Medicare.gov to get the real facts about Medicare.
Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Still getting around to that fix on your car? You got this. On eBay, you'll find millions of parts guaranteed to fit. Doesn't matter if it's a major engine repair or your first time swapping your windshield wipers. eBay has that part you need, ready to click perfectly into place for changes big and small. Loud or quiet, find all the parts you need at prices you'll love. Guaranteed to fit every time. But you already know that. eBay. Things, people, love. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson. Welcome to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. My guest in this first hour of Fat Meat Fridays, where Gina Towns is our regular host in the second hour, is Diallo Brooks. With over 25 years of experience in social justice and civil rights, Diallo has been a pivotal figure in promoting policies that foster safe, healthy, and thriving communities. Diallo, first of all, let me congratulate you on your extraordinary resume. But I'm thinking in this moment, as I reflect upon your biography, that safe, healthy, and thriving communities does not include the National Guard.
Not at all.
It just doesn't. I mean, this kind of occupation with men and women, God bless them, they are our neighbors. Members of the National Guard are not from an alien planet. They are our postal workers. They're people who are being asked to leave their jobs to temporarily perform a function, usually a national security function, on behalf of all of us. No need to provoke them. They're in our choirs. They're in our pulpits. They're doctors and nurses in our hospitals. They are bus drivers. They are civil servants. They are police officers and firemen. These are people who care for us. So there's no need to throw things at them, to spit at them. When this crisis passes, they are still members of our immediate family and our immediate community. They're just all walking around in the same suits, the same hats, and some boots that have to be feeling some kind of terrible in the heat of Washington, D.C. That's probably true in Los Angeles as well. We can never forget who the National Guard truly are. And that's why they're not carrying, for the most part, M16s, these 344s or 324s, whatever size magazine or bullets that they use. No, they're not pointing them at us. And therefore, we must not put these men and women in a position where they do point them at us because of the orders that they may be given. And so we treat them with respect. Give them some coffee. Give them some donuts. Smile. Be respectful. Laugh. Follow their orders, because something tells me deep within each of them, Diallo, they don't want to be there either. That's your thought, Diallo?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
That's my pastor walking down the street with captain's bars on. I mean, wow.
Right. I think the target is not the individual National Guard folks, because actually the folks that are doing more enforcement are probably ICE, the FBI, the DEA, those kind of folks that have been thrust forward. And just for folks' knowledge around Washington, D.C., Washington always has had its local police department, but several other law enforcement agencies operate within our city. You have the United States Park Police that have a presence in Washington, D.C. You have the Capitol Police, and then you have also the other alphabet soup of agency police departments that exist in Washington, D.C. There's always been coordination with D.C. around jurisdiction, and so that's something that's always been there. But when the federalizing of these folks, of pushing in and the controlling of the districts actual police force becomes part of the problem. And so what people are doing are documenting the interactions between the police and the public, what that looks like, how they're maybe harassing folks at particular times. It's unfortunate for folks to get off the train at Union Station in Washington, D.C., which is right down the street from the Capitol building. You could literally see the Capitol building there and see these big armored, heavy duty vehicles sitting out. I don't think it makes it for a more inviting city to be in. When the president talks about a cleaner, safer city, it just doesn't feel like that with you have National Guard troops walking around in that way. And so, yeah, I mean, I always say, you have to treat folks with respect, as long as folks are treating you with the same level of respect as well. But folks are doing what's necessary to push back, to articulate their displeasure. There are protests that are happening, some of them spontaneous. I don't necessarily agree with spitting or doing anything, some of the things that you mentioned.
Throwing a Subway sandwich at someone.
Throwing a Subway sandwich on anybody. But at the same time, we have to also let those that are making these decisions know that there is displeasure in this city, and also displeasure around the country, because we need folks outside of Washington, D.C., who actually have the power to call their congressmen, to call their senators and say, this is not democracy. This is not the way we should be operating as a country. And so we need folks to stand up and exercise their voices as well to support those of us that are living in occupied territory within Washington, D.C.
Whenever I go to church on some Sunday mornings, I'm not going to suggest that I go every Sunday, but on some Sunday mornings, I inevitably hear someone say, this too shall pass. I heard it many, many times while I was in prison. This too shall pass. And I'm like, man, this ain't passing. There's tomorrow, bro. We're going to be here for a minute. This too ain't passing. But this too shall pass. And the citizens will remember the police officers, but they won't remember who it was that was instructing them or giving them orders for their current behavior. That's one of the problems with the federalization of the local police department. The day that Pam Bondi's not there, the day that Donald Trump is not there, these police officers, the day the National Guard are not there, people will remember whether Officer Friendly was friendly, but they will never know why Officer Friendly was unfriendly, because the orders came from Donald Trump to provoke, to invoke, to harass, to disturb. And I'm talking about some good folk. Ron Lester. Ron told me he was coming in from Maryland on Baltimore Parkway and got pulled over by the Federal Protective Services, FPS, and they asked him for his license 3 times, one guy with a hand on his gun. And he had to show that he had business in the District of Columbia. And this is leading African-American pollster in the United States. I mean, once he gave Mr. Lester and checked him out and went through his information and made sure he wasn't an illegal immigrant because he is a person of lighter color as an African-American, he had to come to terms with the fact that his constitutional rights were just violated. I find that particularly peculiar, Diallo. And if it's coming to Chicago, I don't know if police and community relations that we structure our local cities around the country around, I don't know if that idea can survive with the federalization of local police departments. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't think it can survive either. And, it just harkens back on kind of apartheid South Africa, where you had to show your credentials to move around a country. We're moving here. And I can't overstate the racial component to this, because they're not in Appalachia. They're not in rural Alabama, raiding meth labs where there's the opioid crisis in places around the country. They're in Black and brown cities, demonizing Black and brown people. The rhetoric that they're using around
arresting them,
but also the caricatures of these out of control, wild animal, young people running rampant all over the place. It harkens back to a time where there's racial, putting the Black face on crime, putting the Black face on despair and poverty. And then we haven't even talked about this federalization of of moving in on the unhoused population, folks that are at the lowest points in their lives, getting tents ripped up and thrown into trash cans and forced to move out to who knows where, right? The folks that are at the lowest point of their lives that are looking for resources for help. That's what's also happening in our city. And so instead of the federal government coming in and saying, hey, Jesse, let's provide some financial resources to say, let's have some programming that helps the unhoused population get housing. Let's help young people find good paying jobs and mentorships and apprenticeship programs that help these young people, like they're doing in Baltimore, for example, and in Chicago, for example. But instead, they want to demonize the citizens, the people, the hardworking folks, the Black and brown folks in these cities across the country.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. This is Diallo Brooks on KBLA Talk 1580. When we come forward, we'll talk about the unhoused with Diallo Brooks. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. in Washington, D.C.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
You have cancer. The 3 words no one wants to hear. Of the cancers that impact our community, lung cancer is the most dangerous. More people succumb to lung cancer than colon, breast, and prostate combined. Black men are 12% more likely to develop lung cancer, and cases for Black women are rising. Early detection and comprehensive treatment is the best way to beat this dreaded disease. Providence is a research leader in multi-cancer early detection, offering blood tests that identify fast-spreading cancers that don't show symptoms in early stages. The Providence Los Angeles Integrated Network Cancer Program determines best protocols for each patient, interacting with specialists who share experiences, perspectives, and new findings specific to each case. With over 1,000 board-certified physicians, including top oncologists, surgeons, radiologists, and nurse specialists, Providence delivers whole-person care that understands your culture, values, preferences, and priorities. So, if you hear the words, "you have cancer," all you need is faith and providence.org/cancer.
Hey there, Los Angeles. This is James Lucky Jr., publisher and editor of Los Angeles News Observer. Are you hungry for news that matters to you in the African-American communities of Los Angeles? Well, buckle up, because we got the scoop you've been craving. Stay in the know and never miss a beat with our free weekly publications conveniently available near you. Or hop on the digital wave and become an exclusive subscriber at OGNSC.com. Don't forget to join the party on Instagram and Twitter at OGNSCINC for behind-the-scenes access and sizzling updates. No more FOMO. Let's stay informed, connected, and empowered together.
Hey, it's Matt, your leaf filter trusted pro. Gutters are an often neglected part of the home. They're also one of the most important. Clogged, overflowing gutters can cause serious problems like foundation damage or basement flooding, which can cost thousands of dollars to fix. Let's face it, cleaning gutters yourself is not only a hassle, it can be dangerous. But when you get Leaf Filter, you'll never have to worry about cleaning clogged gutters again. Get started today by visiting leaffilter.com/deal to schedule your free inspection. If you decide to move forward, we'll professionally clean, realign, and seal your gutters before installing our patented stainless steel micro mesh system. Leaf Filter keeps out everything but the water. And it's backed by a lifetime transferable no clogs warranty. So you're protected for good. We're in your neighborhood and ready to help. Visit Leaf Filter today for a free inspection and estimate, and you could save up to 30%. Visit leaffilter.com/deal. That's leaffilter.com/deal.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Los Angeles Regional Food Bank is on a mission to fight hunger and provide nutritious food to those in need across our community. They partner with federal, state, and local programs advocating for better policies and funding for critical hunger relief programs like Cal Fresh, the Emergency Food Assistance Program, and the Child and Adult Care Food Program. The food bank works with coalitions and local representatives to make sure hunger is addressed in every district of LA County. They also run nutrition education campaigns, raise hunger awareness, and source nutritious food for distribution, all while supporting regulations that allow food pantries to operate safely. Want to help? Visit lafoodbank.org or call 323-234-3030 to volunteer or find a food bank near you. Together, we can ensure that no one goes hungry in Los Angeles County. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. This is Fat Meat Fridays, where we discussed reflectivity with our very special guest, Gina Towns, who is a regular host live on our program here on KBLA with over 25 years of experience. However, in this hour, in social justice and civil rights, Diallo Brooks has been a pivotal figure in promoting policies that foster safe, healthy, and thriving communities. He currently serves as the founder and CEO of Civic Participation. He is the founder and CEO of Vision Strategies, a strategic consulting firm empowering organizations through transformative leadership, development, and community engagement strategies. Diallo, welcome forward to the final segment of the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you, Jesse.
Diallo, we were talking about the unhoused before we went to the break. This appears to be one of the cruelest aspects of Donald Trump's federal takeover, and that is his handling of homeless people, the, if you will, the derelicts of destitution, men and women who are in extreme poverty. And he has threatened to do the same in all 50 states. The nature of the cruelty. Diallo, your thoughts?
It's really sad. A few years ago, my wife pulled together a group of family members. There was, unhoused encampments in parts of the city in Washington, D.C., and it was around Thanksgiving, and we fixed a separate meal during that week to then bring to folks, not something that was just leftovers, but something specifically for them. And when you have conversations with folks, and we went and talked to individuals, you find that folks either had hardships in job situations. Some of them were working. They just couldn't afford their housing. Folks had catastrophes in their housing, like fires, things of that nature. Some folks had mental health issues that moved them into those situations. And so I think as Americans, as people of faith, different faiths, that we need to do more, and this administration in particular need to do more to make sure that we don't overlook people, that we don't look past people because of the circumstances that they're in, that we have some humility in ourselves and some empathy to really do what's necessary to support people, that particularly those that are the most vulnerable in our communities. And so to see this morning on the news, waking up, seeing encampments and trash trucks just dumping tents and seeing folks kind of marched off away from those encampments, and just listening to the interviews of the folks that were saying, hey, I'm working, I'm just not making enough money to afford a place to live, so a tent is what's best for me in this circumstance. And it just shows that we're losing our hearts as Americans. And some will say that we've always have had that as a part of kind of some of the festering within us as Americans. But I think the ideal of who we are, the best of who we are, would say that we should be doing more to support folks in those circumstances, and shame on a government that uses them as a political football.
My heart bleeds in agreement with you on what we heard and what we see taking place on the news. One moment we see starvation in the Gaza, and there's something we could have done about it. USAID, the Foreign Operations Appropriations Committee. We've stopped starvation in Ethiopia. We've stopped starvation in Somalia. We've stopped and ended starvation throughout the world from the Foreign Operations Committee and the House Appropriations Committee that I served on. We've also supported Israel consistently since its founding from the exact same committee. But to then turn around and look at the homeless in the United States, I even hate that this activity is being associated, Diallo, with the U.S. government. This is not the U.S. government. This is not the American people. This is Donald John Trump. And worse than Ebenezer Scrooge, there is a cruelty associated with someone who would target the homeless in not only Washington, D.C., but throughout our country. There's a cruelty that men and women cannot find bread, cannot find food in the wealthiest nation in the history of the world, that it is a miser, that we the people aren't outraged by the idea of how we treat our fellow man, our fellow woman, our fellow American. It's outrageous to me.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's the dehumanization of folks. We've allowed ourselves to, as a country, and I say we because all of us bear responsibility in making sure that our government functions and is a reflection of our values. And right now, the current federal government is reflecting values that don't sit well with me as a human, as a caring person. That our government, instead of bringing out food trucks and bringing out all of the federal agencies in which we have access to within DC to provide the supports necessary for folks to help lift them out of those situations, instead of like saying, hey, let's pour all of this energy into that, we're shutting it down. We're moving them off. We're carting, we're kicking them out because we don't want to see you. You're too close to where our eyes are, and we need to put you someplace where we can't see you. We don't care what happens to you. We just don't want to see you. You're a blight on us. And that's a reflection of our values as Americans. And so whether it's here in DC or across the country, my call is that all of us have to stand up and make decisions civically about the government that is a reflection of us, that leads us, that takes our tax dollars and spends our tax dollars. What is it that we want to see them do? And let's put the folks in office that are going to care, that are going to do the things necessary to create an environment where we are able to be healthy, where we are able to thrive, where we are able to love each other and be in proximity to each other without conflict, without this negative conflict that we see.
In our next hour on Fat Meat Fridays with Gina Towns, Dexter Hall will be joining us. Dexter is a nationally respected advocate for economic justice and housing equity. He's been vocal about the risks of policies that criminalize poverty and blur the lines between homelessness, mental illness, and addiction. Diallo, it has been great having you on in this hour. Before we depart, with just a couple of minutes left in our program, how about a word of hope?
Word of hope is that people are pushing back. The word of hope for me is like I said, looking at mayors like Brandon Scott in Baltimore, right up the road from us in Washington, D.C. And I actually know him pretty well. And the hope is, if you look at the work that he's doing, you look at the work that Governor Moore is doing, you look at the work that is happening in Chicago, we can do this differently if we can reimagine the way we do public policy and implement public policy around the country.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You've been listening to none other than Diallo Brooks. He is our education contributor. And today, because he lives in the District of Columbia and works in the halls of the Congress of the United States, and between the halls of the Congress of the United States and the private sector and the not-for-profit sector, he's able to comment on what is taking place in the District of Columbia. Diallo, we have about just a few seconds left in the program, but I want to ask you, are these big fences up that we see during inaugurations around the major federal buildings now? Is that what's going on in downtown and in the federal enclave?
There's some, not everywhere. The more of what you're seeing are like roadblocks and roads shut down and certain areas being targeted of the city where there's like heavy law enforcement that's pushed in.
Is there heavy law enforcement in Georgetown?
Haven't seen that beyond what is normal for Georgetown, but definitely in the Navy Yard area and other parts, the wharf, other sections of the city.
Yeah, they know better than to do that in Georgetown, I'm sure, where the very comfortable live in the District of Columbia's area. That's not something that they're willing to tolerate. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. When we come forward, more on KBLA with Fat Meat Fridays and Gina Towns and Dexter Hall.
1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Black New York City Mayor Eric Adams says a 12th Harlem cooling tower tested positive for Legionella but will be fixed by Friday.
I want to reassure everyone the air is safe to breathe and there's no risk to our drinking water or our water supply.
92 people have been sickened in 3 weeks with 3 deaths. Health officials are urging those in 5 affected zip codes with flu-like symptoms to get treated quickly. Veteran rapper E40 is launching On One Infusion Wine, a flavored wine in mango, mixed berry, peach, pineapple, and strawberry. It will hit liquor stores nationwide in the coming months. And a federal judge has blocked the Trump administration from cutting funding to schools with DEI programs, ruling the move unconstitutional and a threat to educators' free speech. The decision also stops enforcement of an education department letter barring race-based decisions in education. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
For victims of drunk and drug driving, our grief is unique, but you are not alone. You always have a place at MAD. Call our 24-hour victim helpline at 877-MAD-HELP or visit mad.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
We're going to find out a lot about the Dodgers this weekend. The first place San Diego Padres are in town tonight to kick off a 3-game series against the Dodgers. The Dodgers, who have lost 4 in a row, and 21 of their last 33 are a game behind the Padres in the NL West. This series could be a turning point for the Dodgers this season. Are they still a championship team, or are they a team with a bunch of high-profile players who simply are not getting the job done? We will find out this weekend. The NBA schedule is out. The Lakers will be at home for their regular season opener against Golden State on October 21st. This will be the 23rd NBA season for LeBron. The Lakers are on the Christmas Day schedule against Houston. The Clippers' first regular season game is October 22nd at Utah. The LA Sparks are back in action today on the road. They take on the Dallas Wings. 4:30 tip-off LA time. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we aim to foster enlightening, sustainable, restorative dialogue, and we welcome unapologetically progressive viewpoints that empower fellow citizens. We are now accepting submissions for KBLA Talk 1580 guest editorials like this one.
With the KBLA Talk 1580 guest editorial, I'm Martin Gordon, chair of the Pasadena Community Coalition. Recently, I listened to a Tavis Smiley Show conversation with James Falk. James said something that caught me off guard. Black Altadena is gone. My community is being murdered. I said murdered.
All you have to do is go to our website homepage at kbla1580.com and click on the icon that says KBLA Guest Editorials to learn more about our editorial standards and content submission guidelines. As long as the topic aligns with our mission, we are happy to review your submission and consider it for broadcast. We can't make any promises, but we want to amplify progressive perspectives that are community-focused and solution-oriented. So go to KBLA1580.com right now to download all the information you need about our guest editorials. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. And it's Fat Meat Fridays on KBLA Talk 1580. Our very special guest is none other than the president and CEO of 519 Productions and the executive producer and director, creator of the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, Miss Gina Towns, a graduate of Hampton University with a degree in Mass Arts and Communication, Journalism. Gina also earned a master's degree in Theology and Social Justice from Princeton Theological Seminary. She's the co-producer of the Emmy Award-nominated and documentary Hampton University, One of the Wonders of the World, and as writer and producer, her single, Yes, number 26 with a bullet on the billboard. Gina, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show and Fat Meat Fridays, where we engage in reflectivity.
Hello, Jesse Jackson Jr. You've had a very long week, but it's been certainly what? Fat meat, sizzling in the pan.
Gina, welcome forward to the show. Why don't we go through the week before you introduce to us in the next segment our very special guest?
Sure, let's start with Ernest Krim. Brother Krim, of course, we have dubbed him as our favorite millennial. And he was joined on Monday by Reverend Teresa Ford Owens. And what a lively conversation. The conversation took a turn as Reverend Owens and you engaged in certain perspectives of how Bible as a moral compass has been interpreted with different ears and different eyes. And Ernest in the first hour, and I saved him for last because my favorite comment of the week was this: our elected officials are choosing who they want to represent versus the people choosing them. And are they afraid to lead right now? How do we get on the same page when our faith is so important?
Gina, that's exactly what's taking place in Texas and what's taking place, if we're honest, in California. And if we're honest, that's exactly what's taking place in Illinois. When Democratic governors or Republican governors, when Republican governors or Democratic governors and in their legislatures draw lines in such a way, without the census, without the data, without the facts, complying with the myriad of acts of legislation that are necessary to draw a state representative district, a state senatorial district, a congressional district, to ensure that they are complying, for example, with the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Think about that. Instead of people picking who they want to represent them in legislative bodies, the politicians in the middle of the decade are drawing districts and picking the people that they want to vote for them or the people that they want to represent. Couldn't be much more outrageous than that.
Absolutely. And I think the conclusion of the matter for the millennials is either lead or get out the way.
Yeah, I heard that. I heard that.
I think that's pretty much the call of the day. And certainly Reverend Owens, as she, is out of town once again and leading the church disciples,
the disciples of Christ,
the disciples of Christ around the world,
Canada and the United States,
and Canada,
as the only African American woman to ever head a major multicultural denomination.
That's predominantly white.
That's predominantly white.
As she said, and so she has a specific call on her, and she's very clear in how she articulates that call and what she's calling people to in staying at the table.
Absolutely.
And she has that book, so we don't want to forget to talk about that.
Gina, what did you think about Tenacious Tuesdays?
Tenacious Tuesday was our favorite, Barbara Arnwine. We always love On the Grind with Barbara Arnwine.
I thought that that Barbara's underlying thinking about the Voting Rights Act of 1965 is spot on, always has been spot on. I think she recognized the gravity of the hour. And I think that as one of the most exciting shows that we have throughout the week, her leadership is particularly pivotal in this hour, and certainly her voice is, from Los Angeles to Chicago to New York to Baltimore to Atlanta, Georgia, and with the president's federal intervention into the local municipalities of blue cities, that every time that he mentions that they are blue cities, he is tipping his hands as to the political consequences of his decisions. I certainly hope that the states themselves come together around a lawsuit for the release of the National Guard in these states, the federalizing of law enforcement in these states. I don't know anyone who is more clear on that than Barbara Arnwine.
Absolutely. And what provided some of that clarity as a foundation was P.O. Da Silva in the first hour. Professor,
wasn't he something?
Man, Professor always comes, and if you did not hear this conversation, you definitely want to download the podcast at KBLA, Apple Podcast, or Spreaker to hear, because he really laid the foundation. I mean, step by step by step, and this and that. And we ended up having him on kind of in an emergency when the federal troops actually went. Last week we had the Texas delegation on. We had 2 people that are basically on the run from the state
from
house.
Texas Justice.
And this week we were, as we will talk about in the next hour, fortunate after PO had his conversation to have Janice Lewis George, and Robert White from the DC City Council to talk about what it's actually like, much like Diallo just did, to give us a on-the-ground report, because what we have now is 2 cities who are being occupied, or that are being occupied, LA and Washington, DC. And so it's almost like we're marching down a path here. And I'm looking forward to hearing what our guests that will be on in the next segment.
When we get through Wealthy Wednesdays, Thoughtful Thursdays, and then we will be bringing our special guest in the next hour. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. This is KBLA Talk 1580. When we come forward, more with Gina Towns on Fat Meat Fridays and Dexter Hall.
A safe place to go loud. A great place for progressive politics. KBLA Talk 1580.
We all hear the radio ads about the IRS. They tell you to be afraid, to be scared, and they try to frighten you into calling. I'm not here to do that. Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000, $50,000, or $500,000, we have a solution. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in your car, at work, or with your kids. No matter where you are, call now. 800-550-9651. Don't lose hope. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS. Generous programs are now available that can give you a fresh start. Our passion is taxes and helping individuals fix their IRS problems. We have over 1,000 5-star reviews on Google and an A+ with the Better Business Bureau. You don't need to be afraid of the IRS any longer. End your tax nightmare today by visiting us online at TRA.com or call 800-550-9651. That's 800-550-9651. Tax Relief Advocates. Real solutions for real people.
Hey, it's Matt, your leaf filter trusted pro. Gutters are an often neglected part of the home. They're also one of the most important. Clogged, overflowing gutters can cause serious problems like foundation damage or basement flooding, which can cost thousands of dollars to fix. Let's face it, cleaning gutters yourself is not only a hassle, it can be dangerous. But when you get Leaf Filter, you'll never have to worry about cleaning clogged gutters again. Get started today by visiting leaffilter.com/deal to schedule your free inspection. If you decide to move forward, we'll professionally clean, realign, and seal your gutters before installing our patented stainless steel micro mesh system. Leaf Filter keeps out everything but the water. And it's backed by a lifetime transferable no clogs warranty. So you're protected for good. We're in your neighborhood and ready to help. Visit Leaf Filter today for a free inspection and estimate, and you could save up to 30%. Visit leaffilter.com/deal. That's leaffilter.com/deal.
We knew you'd stick around. This is LA's home for progressive talk radio. Be heard. Welcome back to KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. It is Fat Meat Fridays, where we reflect upon the week with Gina Towns. Gina, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Hello, Jesse Jackson Jr.
Hey, Gina, listen. On Wednesday afternoon, Atiba, who last week, I don't understand how he knows people who are on the run. But he chased down the Texans for us, obviously, as the former executive director of the National Council of Black State Legislative leaders and officials. He's able to find people even when they're on the run. He brought Texans to the show. And this week, under occupation, Atiba reached over into that black book that he has, and he brought councilpersons from DC government. amazing shows and testimony.
And I thought it was so interesting to actually hear people who are in elected positions, to hear what an insult it is to the work that they have done, the time that they have spent in the community, and what it feels like, especially for DC, not having statehood, and it being talked about for so long that they deserve, especially with the population that exists in DC, for them to just be trampled. But of course, my take on the whole thing is that this is an effort to secure the White House, that the occupation serves to, much like in the Civil War, there is a march, or a march will ensue at some point towards DC in some sort of provoked insurrection or whatever. I just don't believe that, with crime being down, not only in Washington, D.C., and I think we kind of went through them all. It's, Chicago, it's New Orleans, it's, Detroit. Crime is down in all of the cities, Atlanta, which you traditionally would have said, well, maybe we should do something about.
Gina, but let me ask you this question. Before we get to Dr. Yuri's contribution and we go through Thoughtful Thursday, let me ask you this contribution. Atiba said something. I told you I think Atiba should be running for office. But Atiba said something that I thought very provocative, and I agreed with. And that is, this tragic scenario was providing us an opportunity to change, particularly for some of our young people, their behavior. That some of their behavior has given Donald Trump the excuse to unleash this massive show of force in the District of Columbia. And he said, to that extent, Jesse, my value systems does not necessarily jive with young men walking around with their pants down by their knees and looking unkempt and not carrying themselves with the highest level of dignity. I agreed with Atiba on that, Gina.
I think that we can agree with that. Well, it's very funny because Atiba called me before the show. He says, I'm going to say something today that I don't know is going to get me in trouble. And he told me what it was, and I said, no, I don't have a problem with that. But it does seem like, in this particular instance, that a face, and I think Diallo did a great job of saying this in the last hour, that it is a personification of Black, that crime is associated with Black. And, this kind of goes back to slavery as well. You could be identified quickly because you were Black. So now we know you're a runaway slave. And so there's always been that unfortunate identification by skin color, that somehow just because your pants are down, and of course as a generation we don't feel that, but that's a much longer conversation. We should do a show on it, on what the prison system has done in our particular community and for poor communities, period.
Gina, Dr. Yuri brought the smoke, brought the heat and the hope,
as he always does. I always appreciate Todd's perspective on what the law says, and then he takes it, the politics of our faith, because, as a community and as Black and brown people and Asian people have got the gist of it. Somebody said to me the other day that we can't get past Black people, and this was an Asian conversation, because everything that has been gained, the opportunities that have come to people who have come here, have all come because of Black people and the civil rights movement.
Thoughtful Thursday, Gina.
Oh, wow. So earlier, I attributed a comment to Ernest Krim, and of course, Ernest is brilliant. But this was John Lithiotis, who did say that it seems like our elected officials are redrawing maps, looking at who they want to represent instead of the people electing who now go to office. And I think that is a travesty. But I did want to make sure that we attribute.
It's also the end of bipartisanship. In other words, if I can draw a district entirely of people that I want to represent, there is no need for me to speak to any issues, to compromise on any subject matter. It means that the Democrats and the Republicans, red and blue, are digging in. If we can gerrymander the country in such a way, all we need is for someone to shoot the fire at Fort Sumter, and we will have all-out war. I'm just convinced that that's basically the way the battle lines were drawn in 1859, 1860, 1861. Gina, we have a very special guest today.
We do. I want to thank Diallo because he did talk a lot about our kids as we were, summing things up. He was talking about, and he has, also said to me in the past as well that, there has been some neglect of our young people. They are a reflection of how we treat them. And, in that same vein, you guys segued into homelessness. And our next guest is an expert And he is going to be able to kind of break down what all these executive orders have meant on an economic basis and for the homeless. I'd like to take the time to introduce Dexter Hall. Dexter Hall has expertise in homelessness and economics and how all of the orders that have been handed down since President Trump took office affect economic justice and housing equity. He's been a vocal advocate about the risks of the policies that criminalize poverty and the blurring of the line between homelessness, illness, and addiction. We welcome Dexter Hall.
Good afternoon, Dexter. Welcome to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Jesse Jackson Jr. and Miss Gina Towns for having me on today for this very, very important dialogue. I just got to tell you, I've missed the week, but I got to go back and catch up on the week based upon all the insightful conversations that you guys just highlighted. And even on a Fat Meat Friday, you know, I'm a native Texan, and I got to tell you, I hear my grandma speaking right now saying, baby, they just don't believe fat meat ain't greasy. Fat meat is greasy, and so they'll learn the hard way unless they begin to listen to this fat meat, because it is greasy. So thank you guys so much for having me.
It's an honor to have you here, Gina.
So, Mr. Hall, let's get right to it. We did have some, I've been really concerned about the homeless, and I'll be honest with you, it's always been an issue for me. One of my pet issues. I don't, I may have $1 left. You got it. Because there are people who really are homeless. And I also know the games that have been played. As a young person, I am from Gary, grew up in and around Chicago, been to Atlanta. I always knew where to find everybody when I wanted to bring some food. And I am missing people now. Where are they? Where are they housed? It's almost like the Texans. They are on the run trying to survive. Talk to us about what is going on with the homeless population in the Trump administration.
I think number one is that what you begin to see, all of the policies, and I think you framed it correctly, they're beginning to conflate itself. And so when we look at the data that just came out about the rise in unemployment for Black women, and so now you see Black women's unemployment is double that of Asian and white women's, almost 6%. And so when you do that, you of course begin to push people who are already on the fringe closer to the fringe. And so we all know that housing takes up, the majority of anyone's income, when in America, and especially across our major cities. And so when you push them out, and they, of course, because they are overrepresented in government, in social services, all of the places in which have come under attack, by this particular administration. And so now you're pushing them out. You already had from the beginning is that when you begin to look at the unhoused in America, we don't necessarily have a complete mental health issue, and that's notwithstanding that there are some mental health issues within the system. However, we always need to be clear, what we have is a housing crisis, an affordable housing crisis, is that Brookings Institution estimates that we're short across the nation some 7.5 million housing units. And so when you look at that, then you ask people where they're going to go. Jesse, you and Diallo were talking at the end of the day about, at the end of your segment, you guys started speaking about homeless encampments. And I often remind folks, number one is that in San Francisco, there's roughly some 8,000 individuals at the last point in time count who are counted. If you saw 8,000 people in an encampment, I don't think people understand what that would look like in one place at one time. And they just think these are very large encampments, but not 8,000 people. And so we've been allowed, Gina, to really overlook what I call the true face of homelessness, the invisible homeless population. And who are the invisible homeless population? They're the individuals who are couch surfing. They are the single mothers of children, and proportionally, in large numbers, Black women, head of households, who have been pushed to the fringes, who were staying with family, and unfortunately, that situation didn't work out. They then moved to cars, and they're living out of their cars, and they're taking their kids to the bathrooms and things of that place to be able to wash up before they go to school. And so because our politicians have allowed us to be able to, and I'll say this, criminalize homelessness. In other words, there's this picture in our imagination of it's the guy that's preventing you from getting into your favorite coffee shop. It's the guy that's on the corner that's on drugs. It's the guy on the corner that's this. Well, by far, that's only about a third of the homeless population across America. Greater than 66% are somewhat sheltered in some capacity, whether it's RV, whether it's couch surfing, whether it's in cars, or whether it's in shelter, period. And so now we don't look at that as being homeless individuals. We see those individuals who are on the street as being homeless. And as long as we do that, then as you and Jesse, you and Diallo were talking about at the end, everybody gets a chance to say, oh yeah, it's those people over there. No, it was my cousin and my aunt. I didn't realize Dexter today knows that when they came to stay with us and ended up staying with us for almost 2 years, I now realize they lost their housing and they had nowhere else to go. When my mother took in one of her colleagues and her son, I just thought, my mom's being nice again, and there's always somebody coming to stay with us. And so I didn't realize that at that point in time, she was unhoused and had no other place to go and could not go with family, that now that would be characterized as someone who is unhoused. And so I think we've looked at signs of individuals or individuals who were unhoused across our entire spectrum, our entire lives. We just never saw them as being a part of the homeless population. We've only been taught to see the guy that's on the street. And then, of course, the guy that was on the street, we've been trained to say, that guy is on drugs, he's an alcoholic, there's something that's wrong with him, he's mentally ill, that it has to be one of those top three: addiction, mentally ill, or alcoholism that has caused this. And what I can tell you from our work at Providence is that there's a lot of stories that have caused individuals to become unhoused.
Dexter, let me ask this question. I got up Wednesday morning thinking about Donald Trump's war on homelessness and homeless Americans. And while in Congress, I offered an amendment to the United States Constitution in the first session of the 107th Congress, H.J. Res. 30, guaranteeing all Americans, quote, the right to decent, safe, sanitary, and affordable housing. As long as the Constitution of the United States is silent on the question of housing, conservatives see the right to decent, safe, and affordable housing as a state function, using the 10th Amendment as their basis for the destruction of the Department of Housing and Urban Development, states' rights. Therefore, on the question of decent, safe, and affordable housing for the homeless, America was established as a separate and unequal system because 50 different states cannot coordinate this human right without the guidance of the Constitution. He can do this homeless game in Washington, D.C. It's not a state. He can come round up, take over the government, and push the homeless out. Not morally, questionably, legally, but practically it's obviously happening. I'm not so sure that the states themselves are afforded the same obligations, responsibility, and it's certainly beneath the dignity of what it means to be a human being in the United States. Your thoughts, Dexter?
No, I think you're beginning to see that at many states, inclusive of the state that I'm in California, that you just can't sweep away homelessness when there's no place to go. The math doesn't lie. Supply is the issue. It is a supply issue. And so, and I think we keep trying to, and as you stated, if you go through the years, it's been this issue, and then we put this towards it. It's been this, and then we put this medicine towards it, and it's that, and we put this towards it. There's a reason why none of those solutions have worked. None of those solutions have worked because at the end of the day is that if there still is no place for these individuals to go, they will end up on the street, or they will end up in shelter. When you look at the most recent executive order and what it actually does, it basically criminalizes being poor once again. It criminalizes being unhoused, and it takes away programs that actually were working, such as Housing First, where those programs basically met an individual where they were, recognizing that first and foremost, let's make sure you're housed. And then whatever ancillary issues that there might be, let us take care of those after the fact. It does not work in reverse when all of a sudden you want to try and treat or mitigate, if you will, what you feel to be a behavioral health issue or an alcoholism issue, when at the same time this individual still has to be returned to the streets or returned to less than sanitary housing or shelter that may not be satisfactory to them. And so that continues to put trauma up on that individual, which all of a sudden you're trying to help them to get out of trauma. And so you continue to inflict trauma.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Give me 1 second, please, Dexter. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to KBLA Talk 1580. When we come forward, more with Dexter Hall. He's breaking it down for us today. And we stayed at the Line Motel the last time we were in Line Hotel, last time we were in Los Angeles, and up and down downtown LA. There's a federal presence coming in your direction. When we come forward, more with Jesse Jackson Jr., Dexter Hall, and Gina Towns on Fat Meat Fridays.
The station you turn to when you've had it up to here with cultural incompetence. KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. An ICE raid took place outside the Japanese American National Museum in Little Tokyo as California Governor Gavin Newsom held a news conference. Black Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass called the timing deliberate.
There is no way this was a coincidence. This was widely publicized.
One person was detained as Newsom announced a November 4th special election on new congressional maps to counter a GOP-led redistricting push in Texas. Singer and actress Tiana Taylor was found in contempt of court for violating her divorce terms with former husband Iman Shumpert and must pay his $70,000 legal fees. The judge also rejected her claims he leaked details of the divorce finalized in July 2024. And the Department of Justice has ended its investigation into the 2020 death of Manny Ellis, a 33-year-old black man who died while restrained by Tacoma, Washington police. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
For victims of drunk and drug driving, our grief is unique. But you are not alone. You always have a place at MAD. Call our 24-hour victim helpline at 877-MAD-HELP or visit mad.org. For victims of drunk and drug driving, our grief is unique. But you are not alone. You always have a place at MAD. Call our 24-hour victim helpline at 877-MAD-HELP or visit mad.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
If for some reason things don't work out for Jim Harbaugh with the Chargers and he wants to go back to college, he'll have to wait 10 years to do it. The NCAA slapped Harbaugh with a 10-year show cause penalty for his alleged role in a sign-stealing scheme during his time at the University of Michigan. The show cause penalty prevents any college from hiring the 61-year-old Harbaugh until at least 2035. While Harbaugh was at Michigan, Connor Stallions, one of his staff assistants, was found guilty of traveling to games of future Michigan opponents to film and take pictures of the team's signals and sideline activity during games. The NCAA says Stallions did this over a 3-year period. Today's ruling by the NCAA makes it very unlikely that Harbaugh will want to go back to college. Harbaugh is in the second year of a 5-year contract with the Chargers worth $80 million. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about. Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, a.k.a. the voice of reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the voice of reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
JP Morgan Chase offers tips for the local business owners in 2025. Small business landscape is ever changing, and the Los Angeles market is no exception. A startup or legacy business, revisiting your mission statement and recalibrating offerings can renew opportunities for growth and innovations. Programs like Chase for Business Coaching for Impact gives entrepreneurs access to expert guidance, helping you streamline operations, strategize your growth, and navigate complex challenges. Businesses with a clear sense of purpose can navigate any challenge effectively, but also build stronger customer loyalty. Visit chase.com/coaching for impact for more information. This segment is sponsored by JP Morgan Chase.
An official message from Medicare.
I turned 65 this year. I knew it was time to figure out Medicare, and I had questions like when to enroll and how to enroll. So I went straight to the official source, Medicare.gov, to get the facts about Medicare. I found answers to all my questions, and I'm ready to get started. And so can you. Just go to Medicare.gov to get the real facts about Medicare.
Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Still getting around to that fix on your car? You got this. On eBay, you'll find millions of parts guaranteed to fit. Doesn't matter if it's a major engine repair or your first time swapping your windshield wipers. eBay has that part you need, ready to click perfectly into place for changes big and small. Loud or quiet, find all the parts you need at prices you'll love, guaranteed to fit every time. But you already know that. eBay, things, people, love. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
Heard any other talk radio lately that sounds anything like this? I didn't think so. You're listening to Unapologetically Progressive, KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. This is Fat Meat Fridays, where we engage in reflectivity with none other than the incomparable Gina Towns. Gina, our very special guest today is Dexter Hall. And if he keeps bringing it the way he's bringing it, Gina, we're about to make Dexter Hall make him our only housing contributor. From coast to coast.
We'll call him the commissioner.
Dexter, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show and Fat Meat Fridays with Gina Towns.
Thank you guys so much for having me. And really, I appreciate you helping me in my quest to really change the narrative, because I think America really does not see the true face of homelessness. They just see the individual, as you and Diallo were talking about, the guy in the tent. And that's why it says, if you saw 8,000 tents, America doesn't even realize what that would look like, in one area, to see that many folks in one place. And so clearly, all 8,000 people cannot be on the streets of a major city, if that's the total homeless population for that city. And so they're really all around, and they're around. There are people that you know. There are people that you don't know that are unhoused because they've not come out and told you that I'm homeless. They've not told you that I'm sleeping in my car with my kids. They feel embarrassed, to be able to share things of that nature. And so there are a lot of folks that are right beneath us, right around us, who are basically experiencing instability in homelessness. And we haven't even got to talk about the children who are growing up in this, even as your segment, talked about the kids a little bit as well, and the kids of housing instability or unstable homes, and those who've grown up with washing up in bathrooms before they went to school.
Dexter and Gina, I just want to make one quick point. Michael Harrington, in his book, The Other America, the late Michael Harrington, referred to poverty in America as the best dressed poverty on earth. That it is impossible to see poverty in the United States because of secondhand clothing, of goodwill, of people who dress up every day and go to work and they find themselves in a tent, chronically unable or unable to get housing in New York, Chicago, cities throughout our country. Gina, your thoughts on the chronically unhoused and all of the other economic factors that come together in that moment, because as Dexter said, it's complex.
Well, I tell you what's not complex to me, and that is a president who in his first term said, I was in LA the other day and the homeless is just, they're all over the place. We need to get them off the street. And there was no consideration. And I suppose if you grow up with a silver spoon in your mouth and you are frequent between all of your hotels that, well, maybe not your hotels, but they bear your name, and Mar-a-Lago, you don't really know what it's like to wonder where your next meal is going to come from or where you're going to sleep tonight, if your children are going to have a roof over their heads. And so this is not a new concept in how this issue is being treated, and it's being dealt with. And it's almost like swinging the pendulum all the way to the left or to the right instead of actually addressing the problem the way that Dexter's talking about. And LA was specifically pointed out. But the other thing is, and I want to take some time to talk about it, is that when you don't have generational wealth, which Black people and brown people in this country do not have, because we did talk about last Friday the fact that part of reparations and the end of slavery should have brought about ownership of land. When you don't have land and you don't have something that you can call your own, if you have land and you decide you want to sleep on a tent on your land, that's great. But we really don't understand how close we all are. One paycheck. The people in DC who have lost their jobs in the federal government, who have mortgages, are thinking about that right now, because most people tell you to save 3 months in advance for all of your bills should you lose your job. Well, with the influx of people who have lost their job, it may take more than 3 months. And so, especially for Black women, when you are in a household where perhaps mental illness is an issue and you have to flee with these children and you don't have anywhere to go, if you have a job, you are still one paycheck away from being homeless. And I think that we have to really deal with that and take that into consideration. What do you think, Dexter?
Now, I was looking at a study the other day that the ACLU and the National Homeless Law Center put out. And to your point, Gina, they indicated that the conflation of everything that's going on, not one issue. And these are folks who are housed, that 1 in 4 people now worry about entering homelessness. That's 25%. Worry about whether or not that they will be able to be housed. And you didn't know this, but in my background, I was a banker for a very, very long time and talked a lot about wealth and wealth building, and even from redlining what all of that has done to us. We don't have a bank to pull from. There are many other ethnicities and nationalities. They do have a bank to pull from. And so even as you just spoke about land, so whether they pitched a tent on their land, whether they sold a portion of their land, whether they leased out another portion of the land to be able to acquire income, to be able to help sustain them through a downturn. In other words, they have a fallback. And so they may not necessarily have the grandpa anymore or the mom, but they got a fallback because of all this legacy wealth, and primarily in the form of land. And so that has given them that. What I've found is that it is one of my clients who fell into being unhoused. It was not because of drugs. She lost her child. When she lost her child, her and her husband couldn't hold it together. She couldn't hold her job together. And the catalyst was the loss of a child. Another young lady, and multiple of them, decided not to show or take being abused by a significant other in front of her children. So she chose to stay in a car. She said that was better than to watch my children to be able to see what was going on and them to worry about their mother. Them
Or
to have to worry about them. Go ahead.
Or abuse to one of the children.
Exactly. The loss of jobs, which we talked about, the rise in unemployment amongst Black women, who we already know are proportionally head of households across our country. And so you look at all of these from a mitigation standpoint, and then you couple on that the lack of affordable housing and the shortage of housing. And so you got a huge problem. And in the midst of that, the question, of course, is, will that create trauma? Absolutely. Might that create some mental health issue? Absolutely. When you're worried about your kids and you're worried about where you go. I went to a barbecue last week. Another mentee of mine had a barbecue, and he was telling folks about the work that I do now. And out of nowhere, a photographer came over, nicely dressed young guy, mid-20s, came over, and he says, "How did you know my story?" I says, "What are you talking about?" He says, "I'm that kid that was in the bathrooms. My mom washed us up in the bathrooms." And everything that you just said, we lost our housing. We went to stay with a family member. It didn't work out. And so after a couple of weeks, we had to exit that, and we went to the car, and everything else that you just said is what took place. And except for the resiliency of that Black woman who did not give up on herself or her kids, that they were able to make it out of that. They made it into shelter, and they made it into the right shelter, because I think that also becomes another issue that we deal with. At Providence, we believe, obviously, in applying cultural relevance to everything in which we do. In other words, when a person has gone through some trauma and they're yelling and screaming or using some different words and things like that, Gina, I tell my employees, y'all have heard worse. Understand, it's not about you. It's what they're going through. They're yelling at their circumstances, and how we approach that and how we deal with that. That's how we help them to be able to move from self-reliance to being able to be to take care of themselves. And so that's what it is that we try to do.
It's Fat Meat Fridays on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show and Reflectivity with Gina A. Towns. When we come forward, more with Dexter Hall on KBLA Talk 1580.
Say the quiet part out loud. KBLA Talk 1580.
Join the Black Hollywood Education and Resource Center for its 32nd annual Sisters Are Doing It For Themselves Short Film Festival, featuring 22 powerful short films by emerging Black women directors. See their visions, hear their voices. Saturday, August 16th, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. at the Writers Guild Theater, 135 South Doheny Drive in Beverly Hills. For more information, call BHERC at 323-957-4656 or email BHERC@bherc.org. Tickets may be purchased at eventbrite.com or at the door.
Hey, it's Matt, your leaf filter trusted pro. Gutters are an often neglected part of the home. They're also one of the most important. Clogged, overflowing gutters can cause serious problems like foundation damage or basement flooding, which can cost thousands of dollars to fix. Let's face it, cleaning gutters yourself is not only a hassle, it can be dangerous. But when you get Leaf Filter, you'll never have to worry about cleaning clogged gutters again. Get started today by visiting leaffilter.com/deal to schedule your free inspection. If you decide to move forward, we'll professionally clean, realign, and seal your gutters before installing our patented stainless steel micro mesh system. Leaf Filter keeps out everything but the water. And it's backed by a lifetime transferable no clogs warranty. So you're protected for good. We're in your neighborhood and ready to help. Visit Leaf Filter today for a free inspection and estimate, and you could save up to 30%. Visit leaffilter.com/deal. That's leaffilter.com/deal.
See website for details. Bills Happen is not a lender and does not make credit decisions. Hey, bills happen. So when you need extra cash fast, go to billshappen.com. Have you been turned down? Are your credit cards maxed out? Do you have bad credit? Go to billshappen.com. All you need is a job and a checking account. You can find a lender and get up to $5,000 cash as early as tomorrow at billshappen.com. BillsHappen.com is the smart way to get a personal lender now. So if you need extra money for car repairs, medical bills, family emergencies, whatever you need cash for, go to BillsHappen.com and you can get the money you need as soon as the next day, up to $5,000. At BillsHappen.com, our process is safe, secure, and all online. No one to deal with in person. And Bills Happen does not charge you any fees to use our service. It's easy. When you need a lender, just remember, when bills happen, go to BillsHappen.com. BillsHappen.com for the cash you need now. BillsHappen.com.
The California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, Black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's calcruisenews.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future. Subscribe today.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Worried about eviction? You have rights, and Stay Housed LA can help. Stay Housed LA is a partnership between LA County, the City of Los Angeles, and local service providers. From Lancaster to Long Beach, we're here to help you with tenant education workshops, legal clinics, free legal services for eligible tenants, and online resources about tenant protection laws. Don't face eviction alone. Call our hotline at 1-888-694-0040. That's 1-888-694-0040. Or visit stayhousedla.org. Stay Housed LA, keeping Los Angeles residents in their homes. Stay Housed LA, your rights, your home, our community. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
It's never too early to start talking about money in realistic ways with your kids. JP Morgan Chase navigates how to educate your kids now about creating long-lasting, healthy money habits. Whether your kids are in elementary school, high school, or college, now is a great time to start a conversation about ways to create healthy money habits as they grow, ultimately benefiting their financial future. Talking about money in a realistic way to support your kids' lifestyle and dreams, your first banking account geared towards high school or college. It's never too early. Explaining the basics, what you earn and what you spend, building financial confidence starts with getting organized. Learning and practicing vital money skills now will stay with them for life. Tools they will have to stay on top of their finances and achieve their goals. This segment is sponsored by JP Morgan Chase.
Find a righteous range and don't be afraid to say what you see. We're KBLA Talk 1580.
Welcome forward to Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., and this is Fat Meat Fridays with Gina Towns, our regular contributor, and our very special guest, Mr. Dexter Hall, a housing expert who has been talking with us for the last half an hour, 45 minutes or so, about the interconnectivity and the complex nature of homelessness. Mr. Hall, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you so much. Again, thank you for having me. And thank you for this conversation.
Gina, I just want to borrow 45 seconds of your time to say this. Obviously, I went to prison. I've never had to think or reflect about the idea of homelessness, except at that time I had a wife and 2 kids. And the extraordinary efforts that I went through to try and find friends and family who would provide for my family for the 30 months that I would be in prison was scarier than the prison experience itself in terms of my own mental health. All of my life, Dexter, I've been a provider. But the idea of my now ex-wife and kids on the street or some stranger or foreigner moving in with my family, having an opportunity to take advantage of my kids, weighed so heavily on my conscience and on my mind that I was on the verge of popping. And all of the friends at the mountaintop, Congressman Jackson this, Congressman Jackson that, all of my friends at the mountaintop were not there when I was in the valley. And some of the brightest people that we'll ever meet right now are in the valley. And if they just had a shelter over their head, it would be the difference between their sanity and what might be characterized as deeply troubling insanity. Dexter,
housing is not just a roof. It really is that platform, for self-determination. It's where we retreat to rebuild ourselves after whatever we've gone throughout the day. And when you don't have that, then whatever you're going through throughout the day just happens 24/7. And so where does transformation come from? Where do you now have the opportunity to be able to settle yourself down, find yourself, and then get back out there to be able to fight another day? That's that whole pick yourself up by the bootstraps mentality that quote unquote exists across America. And I think Dr. King said it best, is that it's great, except for when you're asking the bootless man to pull himself up by the bootstraps. And so now we're asking the homeless man to pull themselves up and to transform their lives where they have no foundation. And that house is that foundation. If we think about ourselves, even as kids, regardless of what it was, my mom provided a roof. It wasn't the biggest house. It wasn't the best house. It wasn't the newest house, but it was home. And it was a foundation that allowed me to be able to grow from. When that gentleman was telling me about his story and his mom taking care of him in a car, in a bathroom, I thought about my own kids. And I thought about the foundation that I'm providing for them to get out there and make mistakes, to get out there and do what it is they want to do and transform. This is what happens. This is what housing brings about. And there's a reason why we have sayings about, a man's home is his castle and all of those types of things, because what it does, it allows you to be able to retreat into yourself and find yourself all over again every single day. That's why morning by morning mercies are new, is because you retreat unto God. In this way, you retreat unto his house, and that's him. And so you look at that, and without that, then what do you expect, to be able to occur, except for the fact is that we cannot keep blaming or trying to criminalize those who can no longer afford, or whose circumstances or lost jobs or other circumstances happen to spiral them out of control. And then, of course, we know at the top of the mountain, as you indicated from the legislation that you introduced years ago, many years ago, that this is a housing issue. There's just a lack of affordable housing across our nation. And obviously, it's compounded in urban cities where there's a concentration of folks.
Gina?
Interestingly enough, I've spent a lot of time in Los Angeles, and in particular, this conversation is more related to Santa Monica, where I found that there were not neighborhoods that were just, this neighborhood is poor and this neighborhood is wealthy. Everybody was sort of mixed in, and I thought that it was one of the most brilliant things. And so now we get to urban planning, or the city planners, what goals and that elected people have. What does it mean for us to live together in harmony? What does one another really mean? Because what happens is people learn how to take care of their property. They know who their neighbor is, and they may know that their neighbor doesn't have as much. And then, of course, being in Chicago, growing up in Gary, where as people had to move away from Gary because the steel mills were no longer there and property was left, and their children were off somewhere else because there was nowhere to come back to once the economic bootstraps, if you will, were pulled from under it. You found land, and they didn't try to find people to say that your taxes are overdue. They just took the land over. And so when you tell me that land is not important, I have a problem, with that. And that really gets down to, as I said earlier, our economic wealth, and what we are able to do in sustaining ourselves as a community.
Dexter, we have about 1 minute, 1.5 minutes before our program closes. A word of hope from Dexter Hall.
Listen, if we really want to end homelessness, we got to end the systems that produce it. That means that we just got to invest in care and not criminalization. It means listening to our communities. And we have to begin to listen to the individuals who are in these situations and build services based upon how they need, not how Dexter needs it. Because my view, your view is different. But for someone who is engaged in needing that service, we got to listen to them. And there is not one size that fits all. We try and customize our solutions based upon the individual, because guess what? There was not one problem that brought the individual there. And as we begin to do that work and we begin to invest in others and those across the nation, understanding the need for culturally relevant care and care of people, then there we always know that there's hope. And so we're continuing to keep hope alive, and we're beginning to see some success in those particular numbers. Even in LA, they're seeing success.
Dexter, welcome to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, and thank you for your contribution. Gina, would you like to exit us out of the program?
Absolutely. I look forward. I think that this deserves a little more conversation, particularly in the circumstances that we find ourselves in as a community, because this begs of the faith community, and this is to make sure that people have something when they're thirsty and a place to lay their head.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You've been listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Until next week.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.